By the early 1970s, Elizabeth Taylor's film career was in steep decline. As we established in part 1 of this series, her failed art house era produced two strange and fascinating films, Boom and Secret Ceremony. In part 2, we move on to her Lizploitation years, which covers films like X, Y, and Z, Night Watch, and The Driver's Seat. Although none of these films were particularly successful, they are wonderfully bizarre. By the end of her Lizploitation era, her box office appeal was in tatters, but her willingness to go big, go strange, and unapologetically art house is very admirable. In my opinion, at least. In this series, Elizabeth Taylor's Strangest Flops, I'm trying to make the case that Taylor made a far bigger contribution to art house cinema than she's been given credit for. It's a shame that audiences at the time weren't interested, and since her passing, these films have remained mostly forgotten. But I think it's time to reconsider them, because beneath the camp and the chaos, there are moments of genuine brilliance. In 1971, Elizabeth Taylor relocated her royal court to London to make the film X, Y, and Z, confusingly released as Z and Company in some territories. So this film follows the turbulent marriage of Z, played by Elizabeth Taylor, and Robert, played by Michael Caine. When Robert falls in love with another woman, Taylor's character loses the plot and spends the rest of the film chewing the scenery to splinters as she rants and raves at her errant husband. She then discovers that his new love interest had had a lesbian affair with a nun in her youth. The film ends with Taylor seducing her husband's new lady friend. The husband, played by Michael Caine, finds them in bed together, and the film ends on a slightly ambiguous note. X, Y, and Z was directed by Brian G. Hutton. He had directed Richard Burton in Where Eagles Dare, and he would go on to direct Elizabeth Taylor again in the film Night Watch. So he was very much a Burton-Taylor director. And although he was American, he was part of a crop of American directors who made British films and kind of out-Britished the British. X, Y, and Z is an orgy of 1970s Britishness. If you like vintage aesthetics, particularly 1970s aesthetics, watch this film. You will be in your element. It is the most 1970s coded film I have ever seen, in terms of the fashion and interior design at least. Oh, and I have a genuine question here. Why were all interiors brown in the 70s? Was there a reason for this? I'm not entirely sure. Michael Caine was very much at his peak as a movie star when he made X, Y, and Z. He'd just had a big hit with Get Carter, and he'd go on to have many more big hits in the 1970s, but Liz Taylor's film career was in steep decline at this point. Nonetheless, her star power was undimmed, and she was very much the lead attraction in this film. Many years later, Caine would rubbish the notion that there is a gender pay gap in Hollywood by pointing out that Liz Taylor was paid 10 times more than he was for X, Y, and Z. I don't think Liz Taylor was paid 10 times more. He may have been exaggerating a little bit there. Anyhow, Michael Caine is not known for his left-wing progressive views, so I'll leave that one there. Caine found Taylor to be surprisingly easy to work with. He was worried she'd be more of a diva. She may have been friendly, but she wasn't modest. A fleet of 3 limos escorted her and her entourage to Shepperton Studios every day. She travelled with her personal hairdresser, her makeup artist, her secretary, even her pet dogs. Her then-husband Richard Burton was in attendance. Even though he wasn't in the film, he was nonetheless keeping a watchful eye over the proceedings. The crew would joke among themselves that if the Burtons' entourage showed up to see the film, it would make a profit. And X, Y, and Z was one of Taylor's more profitable 70s films. She was very much in the depths of her flop era at this point, so even having a modest box office hit like X, Y, and Z was a welcome relief. Michael Caine had this to say about working with Liz Taylor in X, Y, and Z. I'm not gonna do the accent, okay? Quote, Elizabeth and I became great friends instantly because she is a real no-bullshit lady, and I like to imagine that I'm a no-bullshit man. She's not very tall, and every time we did a scene they used to stand her on something. She was smashing to work with. Professional. I love professionals. There was never any temperament on the set. She's a smashing woman. I love her dearly. A real knockout bird. So I tried not to do it in his accent, but it turns out to be impossible. You have to put on at least a bit of a Cockney accent if you're delivering Michael Caine's words, otherwise the syntax just makes no sense. Anyhow, by the early 1970s, doing impersonations of Michael Caine was becoming something of a running joke in the entertainment industry, and in the film X, Y, and Z, Elizabeth Taylor has a lot of fun taking the piss out of his accent.
Oh, baby, 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 it's you, baby, it's you.
Shut up, you bloody slut!
But Liz wasn't done with that. Making fun of Michael Caine's accent becomes something of a refrain throughout the film.
Why did I do it? Why did I do it?
In its depiction of marital turmoil, X, Y, and Z mirrors Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Taylor's last truly great role. It also reflects her tumultuous marriage to Richard Burton, a relationship so sensational that their antics could push Khrushchev and the Kennedys off the front pages. For directors and screenwriters, it became impossible not to shape their material around Liz Taylor's private life and public image. As we'll see throughout this video, all of her Lizploitation films from the 70s break the fourth wall, inviting audiences to view Liz Taylor and her characters as interchangeable. X, Y, and Z was written by the Irish novelist Edna O'Brien. Her script went through many changes that she didn't agree to, and when she saw the finished product, she was mortified. She intended to go on the BBC and give an interview denouncing the film, but Columbia Pictures, the distributor of X, Y, and Z, convinced her not to. She blamed the director for the script changes, and said she would kill him if she ever saw him. You know, Edna O'Brien is a very serious, high-minded writer, so I get why she would have been so upset with the film. X, Y, and Z is a trashy melodrama. But I would say, if you approach it as a trashy melodrama, it's actually a very entertaining film. And can we have a moment to appreciate the character Gladys, played by Margaret Leighton? This absolute diva is the bohemian hostess who brings all the characters together at her boozy soirees. Look at that outfit, look at that wig, I mean, come on. One of the things I love about this film is its depiction of the upper middle class bohemia that was so prominent in London at the time. And of course, Gladys is a great visual representation of that scene. She's changed into a pink wig. I'm obsessed. And if Gladys wasn't camp enough for you, there's another scene I absolutely adore where Liz Taylor's character goes for a drink with a hairdresser and, well, just check it out for yourself.
Have an affair with a gorgeous man.
If your lot would stop increasing and multiplying, maybe there'd be somebody left to do it with.
There's no need to get personal, love, or I shan't do your hair nicely.
After X, Y, and Z, Elizabeth Taylor teamed up with her husband Richard Burton yet again. They'd made a lot of films together by this point, and they made Hammersmith is Out. It was directed by Peter Ustinov, who was a highly esteemed actor, raconteur, and occasional director. But I'm afraid this film is awful, and not in an interesting or campy way, just generally awful. And it is so low budget, it doesn't even look like a feature film. It looks like some TV soap opera from some obscure TV channel. I must confess, I watched half of it when I was preparing for this video, and I just couldn't get to the end. It was so bad, I had to switch it off. It was rumoured that Richard Burton had bought all of the original copies of this film and had them destroyed because he hated it so much. But that just sounds like a fun rumour. I don't think it's true. Nonetheless, the film did have a small release on VHS in the 1980s, but it has never been resurrected in any capacity since then. There's been no DVD release, and it's only available for streaming on some unethical websites, and it sometimes pops up on YouTube in really low quality. So this is very much a forgotten film, and I think it should remain forgotten. So I'm going to skip over Hammersmith and pretend Liz Taylor never made it. Also, what's with the tan? She's practically orange.
Richard Burton as Bluebeard. Do you like me?
Of course.
Do you love me? With Raquel Welch.
He was so kind, so gentle.
Verna Lisi.
Oh, lover, when I'm near you.
Natalie Delon. Mary Lou Tolo.
After the Hammersmith is Out debacle, Richard Burton travelled to Budapest to make Bluebeard, and as you can see, he was starring alongside a cast of beautiful women, all of whom were younger than Elizabeth Taylor, and so she travelled to Budapest with him to keep a close eye on her philandering husband. In true Liz Taylor fashion, she totally upstaged everybody in Budapest, even though she wasn't appearing in the film herself. She turned 40 and threw a party to mark the occasion in the capital city of the communist country, and it was the biggest event Hungary had seen since the revolution of 1956. Elizabeth Taylor's 40th birthday party was not a modest affair, you'll be surprised to discover. She had her friends flown in and celebrities like Michael Caine, Ringo Starr and David Niven, but hilariously she made a point of not inviting Richard Burton's hot female co-stars from Bluebeard, the Broads as she called them. Raquel Welch showed up anyway. By this stage in her life, Elizabeth Taylor was in the process of assembling one of the greatest private jewellery collections in the world. She would end up with a jewellery collection that would rival the crown jewels of some countries. In 1968, the year her film career began to decline steeply, Richard Burton bought her the Krupp diamond. Not a bad consolation prize. So for her 40th birthday party in 1972, she was expecting a suitably grand addition to her jewellery collection. The New York Times reported on Liz Taylor's 40th birthday gift. This is what they had to say. When you're married to Cleopatra and her crucial 40th birthday is coming up, you need a grand gesture. The article goes on to say this. Well, it just happened that Cartier had a heart-shaped diamond pendant that once belonged in the 17th century to Mumtaz Mahal, the queen for whom her husband, Shah Jahan of India, built the Taj Mahal as a tomb. It was tagged at $50,000. Burton threw a press conference in Budapest to, well, show off, essentially, and he said this, as reported by the Daily Telegraph. I set out to buy her the Taj Mahal, but as this proved difficult, I bought this diamond instead. Remember, Richard Burton is hosting this press conference in Budapest, behind the Iron Curtain, okay? This is a communist country, and there he is, showing off his $50,000 diamond he has just purchased. And oh, he's got it wrapped around his head there, if you can see. Now, I don't know what the average household income in Budapest in 1972 was, and I'm not even sure if you could calculate that in dollar terms, but anyhow, it was a lot less than $50,000. So this is some serious Marie Antoinette behaviour right here. I'm surprised the Burtons weren't chased out of Budapest by peasants wielding pitchforks. In 1973, Elizabeth Taylor reunited with Brian G. Hutton. He had directed her in X, Y, and Z, and he directed her again in the film Night Watch. This would be her first ever horror film. She also reunited with Lawrence Harvey. He had been her co-star in Butterfield 8 back in 1960. When Harvey reunited with Taylor in 1973 to make Night Watch, it would turn out to be his last ever film. He was sick at the time with stomach cancer, and his health collapsed pretty rapidly after they'd finished filming. He was a notorious womanizer. He sometimes slept with men as well. Anyhow, one of his affairs led to the birth of an illegitimate daughter, Domino Harvey. She went on to become a model and then a bounty hunter. Can you believe it? Keira Knightley played her in a movie back in 2005. I suggest you watch it. It's a pretty good film, and the whole Domino Harvey thing is an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Who else has, for their occupation section on their Wikipedia page, model, bounty hunter? I mean, come on, how cool is that? If you thought Liz Taylor's family life was dysfunctional, her Night Watch co-star was on another level. Liz Taylor actually liked Lawrence Harvey. Not many people did. By all accounts, he was quite an awful person. And Taylor actually visited him in hospital a few weeks before he died. Taylor was sympathetic to problematic people, it must be said. Think about her friendship with Michael Jackson in the 80s and 90s. I think Liz Taylor lived such a strange and unconventional life, and she had such a big personality herself. She found it easier to bond with people who were not conventional. Anyhow, can Night Watch possibly match up to all this drama happening off screen, you know, all the death and the bounty hunting? Well, I'd say it's pretty good actually. It's Taylor's first horror film, as we've established, and she fits right in as a scream queen. In Night Watch, Elizabeth Taylor plays a woman on her second marriage having a nervous breakdown in a posh house in London. She keeps having visions of terrible goings-on in the house next door, but no one else can see what she's seeing, so she thinks she's going insane. The film draws a lot of inspiration from suspense classics like Rear Window and Gaslight. It's often categorized as a hagploitation film because it depicts a middle-aged woman losing her mind. Night Watch received mixed reviews from the critics. The LA Times referred to it as, quote, hokey and hopelessly old-fashioned. And I think this gets to the heart of the problem. None of Taylor's Lizploitation films were big hits. She was making these films in the early to mid-70s, which was very much the peak of the new Hollywood era. A new generation of directors like Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola were reshaping the industry with gritty and cerebral films. They also had a new generation of stars to work with, like Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, and Robert Redford. Another factor holding Taylor back in the 70s was the gender issue. The new Hollywood scene was very male-dominated. Barbra Streisand was considered to be the only female lead who could consistently do big numbers at the box office, and not in a supporting role, but in a lead role. Female A-listers did struggle in the 1970s. I know that this is very much a first world 1% problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. After filming wrapped on Night Watch, Taylor's marriage to Richard Burton unraveled. The drink-fueled rows were getting a bit out of hand. Anyhow, before their first and by no means final divorce, they announced they would be separating. Taylor's next film, Ash Wednesday, conveniently depicts a woman of middle age with a failing marriage who packs herself off to Switzerland and undergoes cosmetic surgery to make herself look young and hot again. That's the plan anyhow. Ash Wednesday is notable for its graphic depiction of cosmetic surgery procedures. I won't show you the unedited version of this scene, but it's pretty out there. The plastic surgery scene used footage of a woman undergoing an actual facelift, incidentally. The footage was spliced into the film to make it look like Taylor was undergoing the operation. This was quite a novel experience for cinemagoers. Ash Wednesday might be the definitive Lizploitation film. At its centre is a middle-aged woman terrified of losing her husband and her beauty. For audiences in 1973, the parallels with Taylor's own life were impossible to miss. And of course the scenes where Taylor emerges from the operating theatre bandaged from head to toe are hilarious. I mean, look at her shuffling around the clinic right here with her face all bruised. And there's the scene as well where she attempts to have dinner with all this stuff on her face, and yeah, it's just kind of hilarious. I wish I could say the rest of the film lives up to this shock value that we get with the plastic surgery scene and then the recovery process, but it doesn't. It just becomes a really hokey soap opera, and it's really quite boring. Such a missed opportunity. The one thing that makes this film interesting is Elizabeth Taylor herself. She really gives it her all. This is one of her more understated performances from the 70s. It's just that the material she's working with is not great. And while it is brave of Taylor to confront aging and the fear of losing her beauty, the film also indulges in a very convenient Hollywood fantasy, the plain Jane transformation. After all the angst and surgery and self-doubt, she gets the big reveal, the glamorous entrance that proves she can still stop traffic. It's a familiar arc and very tempting for A-list divas. Barbra Streisand, a friend of this channel, does it with egomaniacal glee in a film she directed herself. The Mirror Has Two Faces. We see her frumpy but by no means unattractive in the early stages of the film, and then she has a makeover and everyone's like, well, hello, gorgeous. Elizabeth Taylor's character emerges from her cosmetic procedures looking, well, like Elizabeth Taylor, and here we can see her post-surgery quite literally clutching her pearls as she refuses the waiter's offer of red wine, one of the very few moments in her life Elizabeth Taylor refused a drink. The film reaches an emotional climax when Taylor's character confronts her husband, played by Henry Fonda. Although this scene is kind of camp, I still think it's pretty emotionally resonant. Taylor really goes for it here.
You want a younger woman. That's it, isn't it? Look, Mark. Look at this face. Isn't it almost the face you married?
Ash Wednesday opened to mostly negative reviews, some incredibly negative reviews, and I particularly love this promotional poster that was put out for the film. It edits together the reviews to make them sound half decent, and it says things like, "This really is a woman's picture," or "It is perhaps Liz's most commercial film." I mean, are those supposed to be good reviews? I don't know.
Do you carry a revolver? Because if you did, you could shoot me.
After Ash Wednesday, Taylor made The Driver's Seat. This is the strangest of all of Elizabeth Taylor's flops, and it's a film I absolutely adore. She plays a mentally deranged, middle-aged woman who travels around Italy looking for someone to kill her. It's an inversion of a typical love story. She's not looking for a hot man to save her. She's looking for self-immolation, and if the guy who does it is hot, then that's a bonus.
And this may look like a purse, but actually it's a bomb.
We are not here to joke, miss. We have our duty.
You're all so suspicious. Suspicious! Suspicious!
I think Taylor gives a brilliant performance in this film. She seems to be in her element, playing a woman in the depths of insanity. And one of the striking things about it is the lack of costume change, okay? She wears the same outfit throughout the film, and you know, it looks a bit like a clown outfit almost, and her hair is all messed up, and the makeup isn't quite on point. I'm no psychiatrist, but to my mind, this is a convincing portrait of a woman spiraling out of control. This film is so surreal it could have been directed by David Lynch, and I'm not talking about David Lynch of the Elephant Man era. I'm talking about David Lynch of Inland Empire era, okay? This would be Lynch at his most unhinged. The film was actually directed by Giuseppe Patrone Griffi, an Italian film director. I do hope I pronounced his name correctly. In true Lynchian fashion, it's not just Liz Taylor's character who's losing her mind. All the other characters appear to be losing their minds as well.
Which do you think would be the more exciting, the more sadomasochistic?
As if this film couldn't get any stranger, Andy Warhol himself makes a cameo, playing an English aristocrat. His presence serves no real narrative function, he's simply there, drifting through the airport. As the driver's seat is fueled by atmosphere rather than plot, his appearance feels oddly appropriate. This is probably Warhol's most notable on-screen role outside the factory films he made, and he brings with him that vaguely detached aura that always made him seem half-present in real life. His cameo also adds a layer of meta-narrative. Warhol was obsessed with celebrity, and Elizabeth Taylor was the ultimate celebrity. He even immortalized her in one of the most recognizable pop art images of the 20th century. The driver's seat is based on a novel by Muriel Spark. She is best known as the author of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Spark had this to say of Taylor's performance in The Driver's Seat. The film never came to anything. Elizabeth Taylor took the part of the protagonist, who was a girl who wanted to be killed. It was very sick. It's my favourite book, because I think it's well made. But there was no way in which Elizabeth Taylor could look as if she wanted to die. She looked as if she wanted to drink. Quite a shady hot take there from the esteemed author of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. I think multiple things can be true simultaneously. I think Elizabeth Taylor could need to drink lots of alcohol to keep her going, and she could also give a really strong performance. But I kind of get why Muriel Spark wasn't too impressed by this film. It is a very weird, cold, remote film, and it doesn't have that many fans to this day. I would say I'm taking a fairly eccentric position here advocating for it, but I'd love to know your thoughts. If you're a Driver's Seat fan, let me know.
You look like Red Riding Hood's grandmother. Do you want to eat me?
Yeah, as I said before, this film just gets weirder and weirder scene by scene. There's even a scene where Taylor's character checks into a hotel room and she begins to, well, pleasure herself. And as you're watching it, you're like, oh my god, that's Elizabeth Taylor. I can't believe they got her to do that. And that's why we're calling these films Lizploitation films, somewhere between the plastic surgery of Ash Wednesday and the self-pleasuring and later self-immolation of the driver's seat. We are really exploiting the great and powerful Liz Taylor for our own amusement. And what I think is so fantastic is that she is more than happy to play along.
No, tie my feet and kill me. You can do anything you want afterwards. Just kill me.
The release of The Driver's Seat was overshadowed by the announcement of Taylor's divorce from Richard Burton. By all accounts, Liz Taylor was not in a good place when she was making this film. Her marriage was falling apart and she was pretty depressed, which is quite fitting when you consider the content of this film. It's about a woman losing her mind. Sadly, The Driver's Seat didn't make much of an impact. It got some decent enough reviews, but this bizarre art movie just didn't break through. The strangest of all of Elizabeth Taylor's flops may have been, well, a flop, but Taylor's star power remained undimmed, and so she decided to upstage the Cannes Film Festival. So Taylor was snubbed at the Cannes Festival that year, and so she staged her own premiere of The Driver's Seat in Monte Carlo. This was when the Cannes Festival was happening, so this spectacle totally upstaged Cannes. Okay, so here's how The Driver's Seat premiere went down in Monte Carlo. Quote, Grace Kelly's florist had decorated the red velvet auditorium with 4,000 red and white roses. Elizabeth Taylor made a sweeping entrance in beige chiffon with diamond earrings big as the Ritz. Everyone clapped a lot. Then the princess from Philadelphia entered and everyone clapped again. Then the movie started. Remember, this is the era of Princess Grace of Monaco, okay? Grace Kelly had given up Hollywood and refashioned herself as a princess, and so the fact that she was helping Liz Taylor to upstage the Cannes Film Festival in Monte Carlo, well, I just think that's quite fabulous, and even more so when you consider that The Driver's Seat is a totally demented film. As we've already established, The Driver's Seat was yet another flop, and I think by the middle of the 1970s, Taylor was just fed up of having flop after flop. Even though she could get some decent roles because she was so incredibly famous, I think she was just fed up of it. She could see how Hollywood was changing, she knew she was getting older, she knew her glory days as an actress were long behind her, and I think she was ready to reinvent herself. In her Lizploitation era, Taylor went from this to this, and she showed us that a great leading lady is allowed to get older and to send up her image and to have fun while she's doing it. It's a shame that audiences didn't want to join her for the ride. I think Taylor's fans and cinemagoers in general wanted to see her as she was in Giant. They wanted to see her preserved for all time as the young, glamorous ingenue. It makes you wonder what audiences would have made of Marilyn Monroe if she hadn't died and kept making movies, or Greta Garbo if she'd made a comeback after Two-Faced Woman. Would they have accepted the glamorous leading ladies as older women, probably having to do the odd hagploitation film here and there? Well, that's too much of a counterfactual, we'll never know, but the point being, Elizabeth Taylor didn't fade away when she turned 40, she kept going, and she made loads more films, and I think she deserves a lot of credit. It's a shame that her Lizploitation films flopped and her art house films flopped, but I would encourage you to revisit them because they have many fascinating moments. If you only watch one of the films that I've explored in this video, I would suggest The Driver's Seat. I see this film as Liz Taylor's middle finger to the Hollywood establishment. It's like she's saying, okay boys, if you think I'm past it, try this. And she made a totally nihilistic and defiantly uncommercial film and went down in a blaze of avant-garde glory.